Welcome back to the Daily Deep Dive. Today, we are asking a question that feels incredibly simple on the surface, but the moment you scratch that surface, it reveals the entire architectural blueprint of a nation. The question is, what actually makes someone a citizen? Is it just a piece of paper? Is it a passport? Or is it something more? A specific, binding legal relationship with the state?
It is the fundamental question of political existence. And you're right, it's so much more than paperwork. It's really about the distinction between the citizen and the alien.
Mm.
And today we're going to look under the hood of the Indian state. We're doing a deep dive into the legal backbone of India, specifically the constitutional provisions and the statutory framework that defines who belongs and who is, well, looking in from the outside.
Right, so we're unpacking Chapter 6 of Indian Polity, and our mission today is pretty clear. We're going to cover how citizenship started way back in 1950, how it has evolved, and it has evolved quite dramatically, I might add, through the Citizenship Act of 1955. And we'll also talk about the specific sort of VIP access rights that come with the title of citizen.
And what makes this deep dive so fascinating is the nuance involved. India has this unique mix of legal concepts. You have jus soli, which is the right of the soil, basically, being born somewhere. And then you have jus sanguinis, the right of blood, so your parents are. And over the decades, India has shifted the balance between these two in ways that, well, they tell the story of the country's changing demographics and even its security concerns.
Okay, so we've got a roadmap. We're going to look at what we're calling the menu of rights that citizens get. We'll take a snapshot of what the Constitution said back in 1950. We'll look at the 5 ways you can become a citizen right now. Then, we'll talk about how you can lose it. And finally, we'll tackle that sometimes confusing concept of OCI, or Overseas Citizenship of India.
It's a real journey, from the moment of independence right through to the modern era of globalization.
Let's start with the basics then. Segment 1, the privileges of membership. You mentioned citizens versus aliens. In my head, alien immediately sounds like science fiction, but legally it just means a non-citizen, right?
Exactly. In any modern state, you have these two broad categories. Citizens are the full members. They owe allegiance to the Indian state, and in return, the state owes them protection and, of course, rights. Aliens are simply citizens of some other state. But here's where it gets more detailed. Aliens are further divided into friendly aliens and enemy aliens.
Friendly and enemy. That sounds intensely dramatic.
It is, and it's a crucial legal distinction. Friendly aliens are subjects of countries that have, cordial relations with India. Most tourists, expats, or business people would fall into this bucket. Enemy aliens, however, are subjects of a country that is currently at war with India, and the law treats them very, very differently.
How so? I mean, do they lose basic human rights?
Not all rights, no. But they lose specific constitutional protections. For instance, under Article 22 of the Constitution, every person has protection against arrest and detention. However, enemy aliens do not enjoy this protection. The state has much broader power to detain an enemy alien than it does a friendly alien or, of course, a citizen.
Wow, that is a massive difference. So essentially, if things go south diplomatically and turn into a war, your legal standing as an individual on the ground can just change overnight.
Precisely. It strips away the procedural armor that usually protects an individual from the state.
Okay, so let's flip to the citizens. If I hold that Indian citizenship, I get access to what I'm calling the menu of rights. This is the VIP section. What's on the menu that aliens can't order?
It's a pretty robust list. The Constitution explicitly reserves certain fundamental rights for citizens only. First up, you have Article 15, the right against discrimination on grounds of religion, race, caste, sex, or place of birth. An alien cannot claim this specific protection against the state in the same way.
So Article 15 is basically the shield against bias, and that shield is citizen only.
Correct. Then you've got Article 16, equality of opportunity in public employment. If you want a government job, generally speaking, that is a privilege reserved for the citizenry. You can't have foreign nationals running the bureaucracy by right.
That makes a lot of sense. And then you have the big one, Article 19.
The freedom cluster, yes. This is freedom of speech and expression, assembly, association, movement, residence, and profession. These freedoms are, the very heartbeat of civil liberty in India, and they are exclusive to citizens.
So if you're an alien living in India, you obviously have some rights, like the right to life under Article 21, because that's a human right, but you don't have this specific freedom of speech guarantee under Article 19.
Precisely. An alien can't demand the right to form a union or move freely into restricted areas as a constitutional guarantee in the same way a citizen can.
And we shouldn't forget Articles 29 and 30.
Oh, absolutely. Crucial ones. These are the cultural and educational rights. They allow citizens to conserve their language, script, or culture, and for minorities to establish their own educational institutions. This is all about preserving the identity of the people who make up the nation.
And beyond these civil rights, there are the political rights. This is where the whole allegiance part really kicks in, isn't it?
Yes. Only citizens have the right to vote in elections for the Lok Sabha and the state legislative assemblies. And conversely, only citizens can contest for membership in parliament or state legislatures.
You can't run the country if you don't belong to it. Makes sense.
Correct. And that extends to holding high public office. The president, the vice president, judges of the Supreme Court and high courts, the governor of a state, the attorney general, the advocate general, all of these positions are strictly citizens only.
Speaking of the president, I found one comparison in our sources really fascinating. It's the comparison between India and the USA regarding who can actually be president.
Ah, yes. This is a classic point in comparative politics. In the United States, to be president, you must be a natural-born citizen. That generally means you have to be born on U.S. soil. A naturalized citizen, so someone who moved there and went through the legal process, can never be president of the USA.
So Arnold Schwarzenegger can be the Terminator and he can be the governor of California, but he can never sit in the Oval Office.
Exactly. But in India, the Constitution makes no such distinction for eligibility. Both a citizen by birth and a naturalized citizen are eligible for the office of president.
That is a fascinating distinction. It sort of implies that once you're a citizen of India, you are fully a citizen. There isn't a glass ceiling based on how you got there.
Theoretically, yes. As long as you're a citizen, the method of how you acquired that citizenship does not legally bar you from the highest office in the land. It's a very inclusive approach.
But of course, it's not all about rights. With great power comes great responsibility, right?
No, absolutely. The relationship is reciprocal. Along with rights come duties. Paying taxes, respecting the national flag and national anthem, defending the country if you're called upon to do so. Allegiance is a two-way street. You can't just take the benefits without the commitment.
Okay, that's a great foundation. Let's move to segment 2. We're going to go back in time now. We're going to look at the constitutional snapshot. You mentioned earlier that the Constitution's rules on citizenship are actually quite limited.
This is a point that often surprises people, yeah? Part 2 of the Constitution, Articles 5 through 11, it doesn't actually create a permanent law for citizenship. It's more of a temporary provision. It effectively says, okay, as of today, January 26, 1950, here is who is a citizen. It just freezes time.
So it's just a roll call for the starting lineup.
That's a great way to put it, yes. The Constitution does not deal with acquiring or losing citizenship after January 26, 1950. It explicitly left that job to Parliament under Article 11. It empowered Parliament to enact laws for the future. But for that specific start date, it identified 4 categories of people who became citizens.
Let's break those 4 categories down because they really do reflect the history of the region at that very specific moment in time. Category 1 is domicile.
Right, this was the standard category for the settled population. You became a citizen if you had your domicile, your permanent home in India, and you fulfilled 1 of 3 conditions. You were born in India, or either your parents was born in India, or you had been ordinarily resident in India for 5 years immediately before the commencement of the Constitution.
Okay, so that covers the people who were already there, rooted and settled. But then you have the chaos of partition. So Category 2 covers migrants from Pakistan.
And this is where specific dates become incredibly important. The Constitution draws a line in the sand, July 19, 1948.
Why that date specifically? What happened on July 19th?
That was the date when the permit system for migration was introduced between the 2 newly formed countries. Before that, movement was chaotic and largely unregulated. After that date, you needed paperwork. So the Constitution uses that date as a kind of fulcrum.
I see. Okay, so how did it work for people migrating?
Well, if a person migrated from Pakistan to India before July 19, 1948, they automatically became a citizen as long as they had been ordinarily resident in India since their migration. Very simple. They came before the paperwork era. They stayed. They're citizens.
But if they came after July 19th, 1948...
Then it got a bit harder. They had to be registered as a citizen. And to register, they had to prove they had been resident in India for 6 months preceding their application. They had to show a clear intent to settle.
So that date, July 19th, 1948, was the cutoff between automatic and application required. Now, Category 3 is interesting. It's the reverse migrants, people who went to Pakistan and then decided, this isn't for me, and came back.
Yes. These were people who migrated from India to Pakistan after March 1st, 1947, sort of anticipating the partition, but later returned to India for resettlement. The Constitution allowed them to become citizens, but the bar was higher. They had to fulfill the residency requirement of 6 months and then register. It wasn't automatic. They had to show a distinct legal intent to resettle in India.
And finally, Category 4, the global Indian.
Right. The persons of Indian origin, or PIOs, who were residing outside India. This covered people whose parents or grandparents were born in undivided India, but who themselves were living abroad. They could become citizens if they registered with the diplomatic or consular representative of India in the country where they were living. This made sure that the diaspora wasn't just cut off from the new republic.
It's amazing to see how they tried to cover every single base: the settled, the refugee, the returnee, and the expat. But as you said, the Constitution then handed the baton to Parliament. And that brings us to segment 3, the statutory framework, the big one, the Citizenship Act of 1955.
This act is really the operating system for Indian citizenship today. It has been amended multiple times, of course, to keep up with changing realities, but the core structure remains. The act prescribes 5 ways you can acquire citizenship: birth, descent, registration, naturalization, and incorporation of territory.
Let's start with by birth. It seems like the most straightforward one, but the source material indicates a huge philosophical shift here. It seems we went from soil to blood.
It's a progressive tightening of the rules that, well, it mirrors India's security anxieties over the years. If you look at the timeline, from January 26, 1950, all the way to July 1st, 1987, the rule was pure jus soli, the right of the soil. If you were born in India, you were a citizen, full stop. It didn't matter who your parents were. They could be tourists, they could be anyone. If you were born on the soil, you were Indian.
That's how it works in the U.S. today, right? But India changed that in 1987. Why?
Primarily because of concerns over migration. So from July 1st, 1987, the rule changed. To be a citizen by birth, you had to be born in India. And one of your parents had to be a citizen of India at the time of your birth.
So just being born here wasn't enough anymore. You needed a parental link, and then it tightened again in 2004.
Drastically. For those born on or after December 3, 2004, simply having one citizen parent isn't enough if the other parent is an illegal migrant. The current rule is both parents must be citizens, or are, one is a citizen and the other is not an illegal migrant.
Wow. So effectively, this prevents the children of illegal migrants from acquiring citizenship simply by being born on Indian soil.
Exactly. Even if the child is born in a hospital in Delhi, if one parent is an illegal migrant, that child is not a citizen by birth. It also explicitly mentions that children of foreign diplomats and enemy aliens cannot acquire citizenship by birth either.
That is a massive evolution from everyone born here is welcome to we need to check your parents' papers. Speaking of parents, let's talk about method number 2, by descent. This applies to people born outside India.
Here, too, we see an evolution, particularly when it comes to gender. Originally, from 1950 to 1992, you could only be a citizen by descent if your father was a citizen of India at the time of your birth.
So if your mother was Indian but your father wasn't, you were just out of luck.
Under the law at that time, yes. It was, a very patriarchal view, but that was corrected. For births on or after December 10th, 1992, you are a citizen if either of your parents is a citizen of India.
That's a significant correction. But there's a catch for those born after 2004, isn't there?
Yes. From December 3, 2004 onwards, citizenship by descent is not automatic. The birth must be registered at an Indian consulate within 1 year. And, this is crucial, the parents have to declare in writing that the minor child does not hold a foreign passport.
Because India doesn't like dual citizenship. We'll definitely get to that. Okay, method 3. By registration. Who is this for?
Registration is generally for people who have some existing link to India but aren't citizens by birth or descent. It covers a few specific groups. For example, persons of Indian origin, PIOs, who've been resident in India for 7 years.
So you have the heritage, but you need to put in the time on the ground.
Exactly. It also covers someone who marries a citizen of India.
So if I marry an Indian citizen, I can register?
Not immediately, no. You must be ordinarily resident in India for 7 years before making the application. It's designed to prevent marriages of convenience for immediate citizenship. It also covers Overseas Citizen of India, or OCI, cardholders who've held the card for 5 years and lived in India for the last 12 months.
And everyone in this category has to take an oath of allegiance.
Yes, that is mandatory. You have to swear loyalty to the Constitution of India.
Method 4. By naturalization. This is for the person with no blood connection, no marriage connection, just a foreigner who wants to become Indian.
This is the path for the stranger, so to speak. And the requirements are quite strict. First, You cannot be a citizen of a country that prevents Indians from becoming naturalized citizens there. Reciprocity matters. Second, you must renounce your previous citizenship.
And the residency requirement? I saw some math in the notes on this.
It's significant. You need to have resided in India for the 12 months immediately preceding the application. And D, regarding the 14 years before that 12-month period, you must have lived in India for an aggregate of not less than 11 years.
So 11 years out of the last 14, plus the most recent year completely. That's 12 years total. That's a serious commitment.
It is. Plus, you need to be of good character and have adequate knowledge of a language specified in the 8th schedule of the Constitution. You need to be able to integrate.
But I saw something that looked like a genius clause in the notes. A waiver.
Yes, the Distinguished Service Waiver. The government of India can waive all these strict conditions: residency, language, all of it. If the person has rendered distinguished service to science, philosophy, art, literature, world peace, or human progress.
World peace. I like that. So if you're a Nobel Peace Prize winner, India might just fast-track you.
Hypothetically, yes. It allows the state to bring in exceptional talent without all the bureaucratic hurdles.
And the fifth and final way is by incorporation of territory.
This one is pretty straightforward. If India acquires a new territory, the government specifies who from that territory becomes a citizen. The classic example is when Pondicherry became part of India. The government issued the Citizenship Pondicherry Order in 1962 to bring those people into the fold.
Okay, that covers how you get in. But let's move to segment 4, special provisions and loss of citizenship. There's a very specific carve-out in the Act for Assam, the Assam Accord.
This is a critical part of India's citizenship history, specifically related to migration from what is now Bangladesh. The Citizenship Amendment Act of 1985 introduced a new section, Section 6A. It set up a special timeline for Assam to deal with the influx of migrants.
It created 3 buckets of people based on when they entered Assam, right?
Correct. Bucket 1, people of Indian origin who came to Assam before January 1st, 1966. They were deemed citizens. Simple. Bucket 2 is the tricky one. People who came between January 1st, 1966 and March 25th, 1971.
Why is March 25, 1971 the cutoff date?
That marks the beginning of the Bangladesh Liberation War. So for this middle group, the ones from 1966 to 1971, they had to register. Once registered, they are deemed citizens BT, and this is a huge but. They lose their right to vote for a period of 10 years.
So they can live there, be citizens, hold a passport, but no voting for 10 years.
Exactly. It was a political compromise. They got the security of citizenship, but the sons of the soil got a degree of political protection for a decade. After the 10 years are up, they get the vote back. But anyone coming after March 25, 1971, is generally considered a foreigner to be detected and deported.
That is such a unique legal limbo. Now, on the flip side of acquisition is loss. How do you lose Indian citizenship? The Act lists 3 ways: renunciation, termination, and deprivation.
Renunciation is the voluntary one. You are of full age and capacity, and you make a declaration saying, I am giving up my citizenship. When you do that, your minor children also lose their citizenship, though they do get the option to resume it when they turn 18.
But the government can stop you from renouncing.
Only during a war. If India is engaged in a war, the government can withhold the registration of your renunciation. They don't want people fleeing their duties during a national crisis.
Okay. Second is termination. This sounds automatic.
It is. If you voluntarily, knowingly acquire the citizenship of another country, your Indian citizenship terminates automatically. You don't even have to file paperwork. The moment you get that US or UK passport, your Indian one just evaporates.
Again, because India does not allow dual citizenship.
Exactly. This is the enforcement mechanism for that rule.
Yeah.
Though again, this is not applied during a war.
And the third one is the most severe: deprivation. This is the government taking it away from you.
This is compulsory termination. The central government can deprive a citizen of their status for specific red flag reasons.
What kind of reasons are we talking about?
Things like if the citizenship was obtained by fraud, or if the citizen has shown disloyalty to the Constitution.
Disloyalty to the Constitution, that's a heavy charge.
It is. Also, if they unlawfully traded or communicated with the enemy during a war, or, and this applies to naturalized or registered citizens, if they are imprisoned in any country for 2 years, within 5 years of their registration.
So if you work hard to get citizenship, you are essentially on probation for 5 years.
In a sense, yes. If you commit a serious crime soon after, you can lose that privilege. Also, if a naturalized citizen resides out of India continuously for 7 years without registering their intent to retain citizenship, they can be deprived of it.
Right, so citizenship is not necessarily forever if you break the rules. Now let's zoom out to the big picture in segment 5, the concept of single citizenship. This is something that often confuses people who are familiar with, say, the American system.
Right. India is a federal state. We have a center and we have states.
Yeah.
Usually in federal setups like the USA or Switzerland, you have dual citizenship. You're a citizen of the USA and a citizen of New York, for example, and you owe allegiance to both, and the state can give you special rights, like for voting or professions.
But India specifically said no to that model.
Exactly. India adopted single citizenship. There is no citizen of Maharashtra or citizen of Tamil Nadu. There is only the citizen of India. The logic from the Founding Fathers was to avoid discrimination and to build an integrated nation. They wanted to ensure that a citizen has the same civil and political rights wherever they go in the country.
But is that entirely true? Because when I read the source material, I see a lot of except and provided that.
You've spotted the federal tension. While the principle is single citizenship, the reality allows for exceptions based on residence.
Wait, what's the difference between place of birth and residence in this context?
A very important one. Place of birth is where you were born. You can't change that. Residence is where you live. Article 15 prohibits discrimination on place of birth, but it does not forbid discrimination on the ground of residence.
Ah, I see. So a state can say, we will give lower college tuition fees to our residents.
Exactly, because that's a residence-based benefit, not a citizenship right restriction. Also, under Article 16, Parliament can actually prescribe residence requirements for certain government jobs.
The source mentions Andhra Pradesh and Telangana specifically here.
Yes. For certain non-gazetted posts in those states, residence can be a qualification. So while you're a citizen of India, you might not be eligible for a specific state job because you aren't a resident of that state.
Then you have the tribal areas.
Right. Article 19 restrictions. Outsiders can be restricted from entering or settling in scheduled tribe areas to protect their unique culture and language. So your freedom of movement as a citizen has certain geographical limits.
And we have to mention Jammu and Kashmir in this context.
Historically, yes, it was the biggest exception. Before 2019, under Article 35A in the 1954 order, the J&K legislature could define permanent residence. And it could give them special rights for things like land ownership and government jobs. If you weren't a permanent resident, you couldn't buy land there.
But that changed in 2019.
Yes, the Constitution, application to Jammu and Kashmir Order, 2019, effectively abolished that special status. It brought J&K in line with the single citizenship principle that applies to the rest of India.
So the trend is definitely pushing towards that single citizenship ideal. Which brings us to our final segment, segment 6, connecting with the diaspora, the OCI.
This is a classic case of trying to have your cake and eat it too. In 2000, there was the LM Singhvi Committee. They looked at the huge, successful Indian diaspora people in Silicon Valley, London, Dubai, and said, we need a constructive relationship with them. They actually recommended dual citizenship.
But you just said the Constitution forbids dual citizenship. Article 9 is very clear on that.
Correct. So they couldn't call it citizenship in the full constitutional sense. They had to create a workaround. Initially, they had the PIO, or Person of Indian Origin card, in 2002. Then they created the OCI, Overseas Citizenship of India, in 2005.
And that created a mess.
Total confusion. You had two parallel schemes with slightly different rules running at the same time. So in 2015, the Citizenship Amendment Act merged them. Now we just have the Overseas Citizen of India cardholder.
And who is eligible for this gold card, so to speak?
Essentially, it's for citizens of other countries who could have been Indian citizens in 1950 or who have Indian origin.
Yeah.
But there is a massive exclusion. No one with roots in Pakistan or Bangladesh is eligible.
That is a very distinct line drawn based on the history of the subcontinent. Okay, so if I get an OCI card, what do I actually get? Is it a passport?
It is definitively not a passport. It's more like a lifelong visa. It allows you to live and work in India without constantly applying for visas. But remember that menu of rights from segment 1.
The VIP access.
The OCI cardholder does not get the VIP access. They cannot vote. They cannot run for office. They cannot be president, vice president, or a judge. They don't get equality of opportunity in public employment.
So it's citizenship light.
It's residency rights without political rights. It allows for economic integration. You can do business. You can live there, but no political integration. And just like full citizenship, the OCI card can be canceled.
For the same reasons.
Similar reasons, yes. If you obtained it by fraud, showed disaffection to the Constitution, or and this is strict, if you were imprisoned for 2 years within 5 years of getting the card.
So it's a fragile privilege then.
It is a statutory privilege, not a constitutional right. That's the key difference.
So let's just try and unpack this all. We started with the 1950 constitutional freeze, then moved to the 1955 Act, which is the real engine of it all. We saw how India shifted from soil to blood in 1987 and 2004, and we've discussed how single citizenship tries, with some difficulty, to hold this massive, diverse nation together.
That is the narrative. It's a story of a state constantly defining and redefining its perimeter. Who is in, who is out, and what are the terms of engagement.
And it brings us to a really provocative thought to end on. We talk about this legal framework of single citizenship, which was designed to create unity. The Constitution says, we are all one.
And yet, if we look at the source material, it ends on a rather somber note. It points out that despite this single citizenship and the promise of uniform rights, India continues to witness communal riots, class conflicts, caste wars, and linguistic clashes.
Right. The law says we're one, but the reality on the ground is often fractured.
Which raises the fundamental question. Has the legal framework actually realized the Founding Fathers' goal of an integrated nation? Or is legal citizenship just one small part of a much larger, more complex social puzzle? I mean, can a law actually create a nation, or does the nation have to exist in the hearts of the people first?
That is a question worth chewing on. Does the paper make the citizen, or does the citizen make the paper?
Indeed, it suggests that constitutional unity is a goal to strive for, not just a given fact.
Thank you so much for walking us through this labyrinth of laws and dates. It's incredibly complex, but understanding these rules is really the only way to understand the structure of the country.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure to break it down.
And to our listeners, thank you for sticking with us on this deep dive into Indian citizenship. Please make sure to like and subscribe to the channel Daily Deep Dive so you never miss an episode. We'll catch you next time.